Welcome to Tweet Street Scotland Occupied, Tweet Street Occupied Scotland, everyone. I'm Cinnamon Bridges, aka Peter. With me this evening, as usual, is my co-host JB Whitesnake. All right, John, how you doing, mate?
Not bad, Peter. How's yourself?
I'm absolutely excellent, buddy. Excellent as usual. We also have our guest for this evening, who is none other than Let Alba Flourish. It is Alison Graham, who will be speaking to a wee bit more in a wee second. The show this evening had some imagery contributions thanks to Kegi Bedo 76 and Scotland the Brave at Scotland 1878. So the show this evening, Alba Flourishing, with the help of Alison, at hashtag Tweet Street Occupied Scotland, satirical saltire. And if we go along to the next wee slide, we have a clearer picture. This is Alison. So, Alison, I'm going to actually kind of just to introduce yourself more than anything else. We're going to be talking about a lot of things that are Scottish. Hopefully, these things might come up in the conversation because we're a wee bit Scottish to the bone. So, for that, I'm just going to hand you over to John. And John, you can ask Alison to do the introductions, and we'll see how it goes.
Yep. Yeah, sure. Hi, Alison. How you doing?
Good, thanks, John. Nice to be here with you too.
Hi. You want to tell us a wee bit about yourself and how you're connected to Alba and what your involvement is, please?
Yeah, sure. Probably I'll try and be brief. Obviously, Alba has only been in existence for 4 weeks, just over 4 weeks and a couple of days. I actually didn't join right away. I was on the SNP National Executive Committee, so I was in a bit of a quandary that I'd made a commitment to that, but there was a few things that made me kind of decide that actually Alba was where I thought I could make the most difference. So that's what I've done. I've joined Alba and I'm the regional coordinator for Mid Scotland and Fife. So we're running a really positive campaign here, 4 fantastic candidates. The activists that are working with us are just amazing. And we've been all over the country. The weather's been great. It's like being on holiday after lockdown, actually. Been up to Killiecrankie and Blairgowrie and been over to Fife, all round Stirling, Clachmannan. And really, the best bit is meeting people and seeing just how passionate people are and how urgent they know Scottish independence is. And that is the real message for Alba. It's like, now is the time for having this conversation with people of Scotland. And that's where all our focus and our experience from being active in the grassroots and both through political parties comes into play, because lots of people have learned a lot in 7 years and we are in a much stronger position now. I think people really do understand where our strengths lie. And we've been through a huge amount in the last year with our communities. And even though it's sort of makes me laugh when people say, oh, you can't campaign. I go, well, it depends what you mean by campaigning. Those of us who've been working with our communities throughout, that is not, the traditional campaign. It's walking the walk rather than sticking a leaflet through the door and, giving a bit of chat. So really, it's about that building these authentic relationships with people and not seeing politics as a transactional experience.
Well, that's a very good point. This is Baroness Harrier Minion, the Canny Scotland News. And the Big Line News, working in conjunction with the Odd and Scotland's voting since way before the lead up to the 2014 general referendum and all that. See, I keep on getting mixed up when I'm talking to all you nats. I mean, he's looking after women or something like that because he's getting a wee bit of a hard time with women. He's no. Just forgive my makeover. I was waiting for a makeover today.
Well, I got here the other day, but I'm not. Yeah, well, there's actually a lot of women, and a lot of very strong women. I'm in a kind of grassroots women's group from way back, during the independence referendum and beyond, and a lot of really strong women are joining Alba because they see. I mean, I don't want to get into the kind of controversies. All rights are equal, and that is what what we think, and that is what the party is pushing. For me, it's always been about balanced rights and protections for everybody. And I'm a passionate supporter of a written constitution that protects, in a higher law, everybody's balanced rights and protections. You can't give something by taking something away from other people. But the only way you really understand that is to have a proper respectful conversation and listen to the rounded arguments. Citizens' Assembly is another passion of mine, and I've always thought Citizens' Assembly is the way that we actually, as a grown-up country, look at this and look at what it means to be a citizen of Scotland, what actually is a citizen of Scotland, and what are our rights and protections. Because
well, we get rights that we get elected to the House of Lords. When we don't get elected, we just get a wee sideshow to the House of Lords. Know that, with all that money, know that. Right, but anyway, aye, okay, you just wire in and that. John, thanks very much. You take care for here, thanks.
Alison, I'm sure you'd like to see at some point Alba and SNP coming to an understanding and working together for the benefit of all, like, yeah?
Well, my personal experience is I've got a lot of friends in SNP and they're still my friends. You know, we're not in the playground, you know, this is a kind of grown-up conversation. I mean, I don't just mean activists. I mean, most people are on, the way I've described it, we're still on the same road. The road's just a bit wider now for independence. We're all still going in the same direction. So there's a lot of what I would call distraction being pushed about just now. But the priority is to keep focused on what the goal is. The goal is not just to achieve, you know, independence, it's to build a better country, which is not moving a nameplate from Westminster to Holyrood. It's about really thinking about what, and being honest about what Scotland's issues are, as well as what Scotland's assets are. And we can only do that if we have a proper grown-up conversation with people. So for me, it's not about competition. In many ways, actually, what Alba are promoting, Both Votes Yes, is actually about a complementary solution. It's also giving people choice, because you can't mandate or whip the electorate or the membership, actually. You have to convince them. And, you know, to have a convincing argument, if you want independence, is to get as many independents supporting MSPs to speak loudly for Scotland in our own parliament. And that has got to be a good thing. And I think a lot of people do realise that. And we can't allow the political machine to get in the way of the objective of independence.
Well, Alison, here's a question. This is all damn Scotland's voting. You can't Scotland News and the Big Line News, working in conjunction with Baroness Area and Minion and that, for way before the 2014 referendum, and way before that, centuries before. Anyway, now, you were talking about getting a wee bit of exposure and that, Alba, right? Now, I went on location to George Square this week, and I tried to have a word with Tulsa Gray on camera, and I tried to have a word with another representative there who is known as Neil Mackay. None of them wanted to appear on camera. However, I did manage to get some of these wee bad boys, as you'll see here. Got some of these wee bad boys because I'm actually thinking about joining forces. I'm thinking about joining forces with you. That's only if I get kicked out of the motherland and that. So, do you think it's fair that I'm not getting TV exposure? Do you think it's fair?
The Alba are not getting TV exposure?
Aye.
I don't think it's fair for the electorate, in all honesty. I mean, if you're asked to make a choice, you should be furnished with information. So I think it's actually the service that the media, are supposed to be providing a service to the electorate before what is the most important election. I know people say that a lot, but we are at a critical time. We've had 3 crises. We've had Tory austerity from a financial crisis and Brexit, and now a global pandemic. Any change comes from crisis. It's a catalyst for change. If we don't do it now, then when will we ever do it?
Right, I'm going to gear a kick now. Aye, oh, sorry, did you hear? Sorry, was my microphone on there? Sorry about that. John, sorry, can you rescue me?
I'm in Glasgow, by the way, so
picking the right one.
John, back to you, mate. Back to you.
Did you see a certain Conservative MSP's comments here just at the end of last week about the union should be enforced by something more than the consent of the people? What's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that are not unexpected. One of the things I've always thought is, and I've said to people a lot, if you think we've got lots of time here, I said it last year, we've got a small window of opportunity when, for the first time, because of Brexit and the unknowns, actually independence was the least risky option for your small C conservative thinkers. But people will settle into Brexit. But constitutionally, it really bothers me when people talk about Catalonia and Scotland being in the same position. You know, our friends in Catalonia are in a position because of the Spanish Constitution that we are not in yet,
Yeah.
but we could be in if we're not very careful. Because you know, these people have got their result for Brexit and the IndyRef in 2014, whether we like it or not. And what's to disincentivise them from bricking the wall against referendums, or certainly referendums that the whole country don't vote for. When I say the country, the whole of the union don't vote for. So it's very worrying that you know, I don't trust an 80-seat Tory majority for another 3 years. Boris Johnson could be gone tomorrow. You know,
Alison, I mean, this is Oliver and Ed here. Oliver and Ed, you know, Scottish historian, self-proclaimed. You were mentioning there about you were doing a bit of campaigning, and then you mentioned the union. Oh, the union, yes. Do you know anything of the Highland clearances?
I do.
You do? Because apparently my take on it is under challenge at the minute. So if you could give me your take on it, just to see how close we are.
Oh, on the on the Highland clearances.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think if you look at Scotland's history and how our population has been treated, we're actually doing a project. I'm in the National Yes Network. We're doing a project on the diaspora, and we're looking at Nova Scotia, which is, many people say, more Scottish than Scotland. And they really, from the distance, really do understand that, you know, Scotland essentially built Canada, you know, and, you know, a lot of the ancestors, a lot of people who were, sorry, my laptop's doing something weird. Hold on. A lot of the people over there who are descended from people who were cleared off their land, you know, really do understand the history because they've read it, which we were not often taught in schools. I've read all the like John Preble books and others, and I think Outlander, which is kind of dramatisation, but I think it does make people a bit more interested in their history, and that's got to be a good thing. I think the schools now, I have to say, are getting a lot better. My kids know more about the Highland clearances than I was taught at school, but my dad taught me. I think that's the way this history has been passed down through families and people. The
only thing I can say there, Alison, is it maybe a good thing for you, but I'm getting challenged more, and I'm getting found out that I'm taking absolute shite. Thanks anyway for your time and that. John, over to you.
What's your opinion of Boris Johnson and the British government, bearing in mind it doesn't matter what he does, he seems to have made a Teflon, whether he's given somebody 160 grand or whatever, and he's still 14 points ahead of Labour, allegedly. So what does that say to about what's going to happen to Scotland if we don't get independence?
Yeah, I mean, Boris Johnson for me is just a character in the pantomime that is Westminster, and the controls and the levers that they've got, which is why they pick flawed characters, because they have leverage. Anything that they do will be thought through, and I think we need to keep reminding ourselves that the British establishment don't play fair. Scotland, you know, would be naive to think that we would be the exception to the rule in that. You have to look at countries across the world and the way the British establishment has treated them. So I really do think Scotland, the time, and I've heard this argument, don't interrupt your opposition when they're doing your job for you. The time has come for Scotland to stop relying on Westminster pushing people towards independence. We need to start pulling people ourselves and take responsibility. You want to be a proper grown-up country and self-determined, you have to make all your own decisions, and that includes raising the confidence of our own people to be independent.
Peter's going to say that.
Very good timing there, Alison. This is Fury's travelling Gypsy Fizz King here. Now, I read an article the other day from, I think it was Alan Ramsey. It was about this Douglas Ross. He hates the Gypsy Travellers, you know. I read an article about him. You haven't happened to have read that, did you? I thought it was a very informative piece.
I haven't read it. I have been aware of what he said in the past. So what? Sorry, was there a question?
Right, I was just you hadn't read the article, but you are aware of what he's been saying in the past. Yeah. I mean, what's your thoughts on the old Gypsy Travellers?
It's a community. The Gypsy travelling community is a community that is as valid as any other community in Scotland. You know, Scotland, you know, I know it sounds a bit kind of cliched, you know, all Jock Tamsons and Bairns, but of course we are. You know, I've got friends who are from the travelling community, which that sounds a bit kind of, I've got friends, but I mean, I don't have friends because of that or despite that. It's just people are people as far as I'm concerned. But I mean, for me, his response to that is because, you know, people are not, they don't look beyond labels, and I think that's something we absolutely have to do. These things tend to come from a kind of, you know, a focus on differences rather than a focus on what brings us together. And you know, if you've had an upbringing that, you know, there's almost a fear of people who are perceived to be different to you rather than looking at, you know, the things that are common. Kids just don't get that. Kids just see things very, very, you know, straightforward. You know, these biases are built in through society, telling you that you're different and there's something odd or unusual. And, you know, at the end of the day, everybody's got talents, everybody's got things to bring to Scotland, to make us a successful country. For everybody that lives here, you know, whether you were born here, whether you've just arrived, it is really about, you know, it's our home, and we should, you know, be able to, you know, get on together and see what joins us rather than what separates us.
Well, I couldn't put any better. Alison, thanks very much. I need to get back in the ring now, so thanks very much. John, over to you.
Another thing I noticed in the news recently as well, I think the chap's name's Justin Welby, Archbishop of Canterbury, basically saying we should have forgiveness to the likes of people that Boris chose and understand them and have empathy with them. Do you find it concerning that people of high standing, even religious people, are now asking for people to have empathy with the likes of Boris Johnson? Used to have religious leaders attacking politicians who would cause austerity, but now they want you to have empathy with them. Do you find that concerning?
I find it interesting because, I mean, obviously from a religious point of view, you know, it's all about like forgiveness and whatever, and you know, I guess that's not a bad human trait.
Would it surprise you to know that he's an old Etonian?
No, of course not. But what I was going to say is it's not consistent. You need to look at, people need to take responsibility. If you've got authority, you have to take responsibility. And the way that, you know, the policies, there's been zero thought, you know, I mean, things that would have brought down governments like 40 years ago literally happen on an almost daily basis now. I mean, you look at what happened at, like, Grenfell, you know, was so shocking to watch, and yet that just seemed to disappear. Nobody's been held accountable. And it's this lack of accountability, I think, that's at the root of so much that's gone on. People have become desensitized to it.
Would you recognise the fact that the British media play a massive part in that by not holding them to account?
Of course they do. They're part of the same machine.
Right.
Well, you know, once people realise that, then it makes sense.
On that note, guys, I'll do a wee screen share, and the video that you were talking about there, John, I've put a wee additives to the sound, and you can let me know what you think about that. You hear me now?
Isn't this the golden age myth syndrome? That, you know, Churchill was given huge sums of money by his mates. He helped people out, they helped him out. It's how politics worked. We have raised our standards and raised our standards. And of course, it's not right to help out your chums or lobby inappropriately or whatever it happens to be. But the standards now are at a level that no 19th century politician would have survived for 1 week. So it's not that morality has disappeared, it's morality has got much more sting and bite than it ever used to. Good, that's great. But let's not pretend that politicians are worse. If anything, they're better.
Hold them to standards.
Hold them to standards.
But don't despair.
Don't despair, and I would say the big thing we've left out is if you're going to raise standards, you need to have a strong ethic of forgiveness and compassion and understanding. Now, you've got to be able to forgive when people mess up, and you've got to be able to distinguish between minor infractions where the person does need to say sorry, does need to admit they got it wrong, may need to spend some time, you know, on the back benches, but is not destroyed forever, and the really serious failings.
What did we think, Alison? First of all, of your comments.
Yeah, wow. It's just so interesting that the way they're looking at that, the way they're framing it, as if it's like indiscretions and mistakes. rather than deliberate policy. I mean,
Right.
politicians make policy. This is, and some of these things, it's about being found out rather than, you know,
Yeah.
confessing at, you know, at the confession box kind of thing. So really, it doesn't surprise me that he was kind of an Etonian. It is all part of the kind of the establishment as well, really, isn't it? It's just about how you're, you know, it's preaching morality. Yet people who they're saying about, you know, you don't want to destroy anybody by not forgiveness, but people's lives have been destroyed by policy.
People have died. Yeah, a lot of people have died with COVID and everything else. And remember, Boris Johnson went on national television live and basically said to take it on the chin.
Yeah.
Live on TV.
And they don't apologise. I mean, they don't apologise. They don't take accountability for anything. So they are fated to continue to make the same mistakes. But they don't see it as mistakes. They see it as, you know, how's that affecting the polls? You know, what's the optics on that? What are the focus groups saying? That's really cynical. That's a really cynical way to run a country.
It is, yeah. And does it not make you think that we couldn't have anything better lined up for Scotland to show people Scotland can do better and Scotland can make a better choice in that? The stars have lined up perfectly. We've got the most corrupt, inept, horrible people down there that don't care less about Scotland. So that should be screaming to people in Scotland, we can do so much better.
Yeah, I've always had this thing about like friends down in England that, you know, and they agree actually that, you know, when you go on a plane and they talk to the safety check and they say, fit your own oxygen mask first before helping others. That's Scotland's in. Scotland can only help England by doing it better and showing a direct comparison to what we can really do and to what they're being asked to just accept. I mean, they've demonized, I'm not saying Labour are perfect or Lib Dems or whatever. They're just such a sad choice, to be honest, in England. And I think we need to make sure we don't fall into the same position in Scotland, which is why I think complacency needs to be addressed. And I think Alba has got the opportunity to energise the debate and to really start being more ambitious. I think there's a danger. I'm not going to talk or you know, criticise any individuals or what have you, but there's just taking a step back. There's a real danger of complacency coming in when you've been in government for a long time. And I think we've got a woeful opposition in Scotland. Woeful opposition. I actually think it's deliberate. You know, I know some Tories are like pretty bright people, and I think they're not represented in the Holyrood Parliament in the way I think, you know, they could be. And I think that's a service to the whole country. I think we need more rounded debates, whether you agree with them or not. Sometimes you will actually get better solutions by having critical friends and also robust opposition to what I would call kick the tires of solutions, really be a bit more, you know, getting about what the problem is. I do a lot of problem solving. That's kind of what I do, kind of troubleshooting. And you really have to understand a problem before you can get a solution. And I think we've got really lazy.
Yes. It's a very good point, Alison. Now, I know that you've mentioned that you were doing a bit of campaigning all around about the country, but you're from the Stirling area, is that correct?
Yep, Stirlingshire.
Right,
yep.
So I just wanted to put up, and this was just something that we knocked up, or I knocked up, just so that we could discuss some of the parts. Population, the 36,142.
Yeah, I actually thought it was higher than that, but I mean, that's... I'm Stirlingshire.
It may well have not updated because this information that I'm finding isn't the most relevant. Somebody pointed this out to me yesterday, but I'd already completed this.
That could be Stirling itself rather than Stirlingshire.
Yes, I think it's the town of Stirling as opposed to the greater area. But this is the kind of a thing that we're hoping to put forward, make people aware of the benefits of the area, population change, employment, social grading, etc. The other thing that you'd said was that obviously Alba are only a couple of weeks old now.
4 weeks.
4 weeks, and not getting the exposure that democratically they should be allowed, in my opinion. There was another wee Scottish to the bone thing that I'd kind of prepared. I'll let John talk to you for a wee second, then I'll get that well user in a wee chat, right? It's just to end up the show. So John, last word to yourself and Alison, on you go, mate, while I do this.
Yeah, I'll just ask you, have you found when you've been speaking to people, you find that people are enthused about the election coming up, or do you think they're indifferent about it or apathetic about it?
I think it's hard to call this time because of lack of canvassing, but today, nice weather, over the weekend, we were calling it supermajority Saturday and supermajority Sunday. We're out in Dunfermline yesterday. There was lots of people out in Stirlingshire. Yesterday we're over up in Latham, up in Perth today. Lots of people in their gardens. So dropping leaves off, just having a blather. And I think 2016, and I've said this to SNP friends, our big problem in 2016 was voter apathy. There was a lot of elections, there was a lot of stuff in the media about, coming only a couple of years after the independence referendum, convincing, oh, not another vote. I mean, imagine convincing people out of putting a cross in a box, really.
Yeah.
This time round, I think we are helping, from what I've seen, my personal experience, we're helping get the SNP vote out by promoting SNP on the constituency, particularly in areas like South Perth and Kinross, who've got a fantastic candidate in Jim Fairley, who will be a massive asset to both his constituency and to Scotland. Jim is in Lit Farmers for Yes. Having a farmer in the Scottish Parliament, who is an independent supporter to his core is massive, and he can really cut through there. So I think we are hopefully going to energise that a bit and give people something to vote for. 2014 had a huge turnout because people felt they had something to vote for, and I think that's, for me, the saddest thing when people are not, when they're disenfranchised from democracy, because that's the most dangerous place to be.
Yeah, it's very, very concerning. That's
on that note, guys. On that note, that's the flag waving time started. It's time to wave the flags about. It's time to be patriotic and say that's it for Tweet Street Occupy Scotland for this evening. I'd like to thank Alison Graham. I'd like to thank my co-host, as always, Baby Whitesnake. Thank you both. I will send a copy of the recording, please, before it's uploaded for broadcast.
We got some dumbass motherfuckers floating around this country. Dumbass motherfuckers. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land, and they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork, and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back. They'll get it all from you sooner or later, because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. By the way, it's the same big club they use to beat you over the head with all day long, when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged, and nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all. At all. At all.